Oh, maybe it didn't come up. Okay, awesome. It's recording. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Insurance Knowledge 301A, What to Do If You Have Employees training, presented by Marcia Brogan, hosted by the Early Care and Learning Council. As you see, this training we have set up as a meeting, so we encourage you to engage with Marcia even over the chat box, or you can hop on video or unmute yourself and be able to talk that way. And if you happen to come across any technical issues, shoot myself, Nadej, or Jessica a message, and we can make sure we try to get that resolved for you. So I'm going to introduce Marcia, and if this is your first training with her, welcome. But this is her third training that she's done for ECLC this year, so we're really excited to have her back. And just to give you a little background about Marcia, if this is your first time with her, she is an independent insurance agent with more than 40 years of experience, and her mission is to provide the best insurance solutions for your childcare. Marcia is the premier insurance agent for childcare whose passion is really just to help childcare owners flourish with proper business information through education and empowerment. She's the owner of Marcia C. Brogan Agency, LLC, a New York State and New York City certified women business enterprise, past president of the Kenmore Business Association, and past president of the Buffalo Niagara chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners. She's also the recipient of 7 awards, including the 2019 Elite Women in Insurance, 2017 Women of Influence Award from Business First, 2016 Women in Leadership Award from New York State Women Incorporated, and the 2013 Excellence in Leadership Award from the State Council of Early Care and Learning. Marcia is also a board member of Our Lady of Victory Charities, Supportive Services, and the incoming president for the Buffalo Niagara chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Health. So you are in good hands with Marcia, as you see just of her small blurb about her. So thank you so much for joining us all, and thank you, Marcia, for giving us this training. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, Alyssa, thank you. We're going to try to make this interactive because insurance can be kind of overwhelming and boring and intimidating. So if you have questions as I go through things, please put them in the chat box, and Alyssa will watch the chat box, and then we'll address it as we go along versus waiting to the end. So basically, thank you, Alyssa, for the introduction. And we're going to start with the next slide, which is what we're going to talk about today. What is workers' comp? What are the class codes, the rating? Why do you need it? Who's a named insured? Common claims, general information. And then I'm also going to give you topics for your employee meetings. When you train your employees and you have to have so many classes, there's some great topics that could be you can use, and it would coincide with your workers' comp and disability. So what is workers' comp? In the chat box, can you just put how many employees you each have as I'm talking? So I have an idea of how many employees you're dealing with. Workers' comp provides cash benefits for the medical care of workers who are injured or become ill as a direct result of their job. I got a scratch mark on my screen. I don't know how that happened. So, okay, so I see 2, 1.
Yep, just looks like a bunch of 2s and a bunch of 1s.
Okay, so, and I don't know where this blue mark all of a sudden just appeared.
Might have just been from like a paint feature, Marcia. I think maybe you were trying to paint or something. Show us a beautiful picture.
Oh, well, I don't know how I did that.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know how to get rid of it. Sorry, I must have. Something's always new when I do the Zoom. So the purpose of the workers' comp is to protect people who become injured or disabled at their jobs. That's why it's state mandated. If you have an employee, you have to have workers' comp. And Stephanie's going to address this with complete payroll. If you have an employee and you don't have workers' comp, you will be fined. And some of the fines could be really expensive, anywhere from a few thousand a day to several thousand a day. I had one client that didn't have workers' comp, and he ended up having a bill of $40,000 that he was fined from the state. So your workers' comp covers missed wages if you're injured or they need time off from work, medical expenses, vocational rehab, death benefits like funeral costs if an employee passes away on a work-related incident. In New York, like I said, every employee needs to be covered, whether they're part-time, whether they're borrowed, leased, family members, and volunteers. Family members and volunteers is a dicey one when it comes to childcare. But if you have a family member that's on the books, you need to make sure that if they get a paycheck, they need to be listed in part of your workers' comp. What do you need for workers' comp? You need your business name and address. You need your FEIN number. You need the type of business, whether it's a corporation, an LLC. You need the employee job description and payroll. And you need to be specific with the job description. If they do 2 or more things, you have to list what it is, because the workers' comp will take the class code that is the most expensive. Whether you have executive officers, president, vice president, and they want to see your prior workers' comp. A lot of companies won't take you if you're brand new. If you go through the state fund just changed their guidelines. Before, you could not, if you were ABC daycare and then you closed and you started Acme daycare, you were not allowed to start that other daycare until all your payment, if you owed money from the original daycare, was paid in full. And a lot of people weren't able to pay that and start the new one. So now the state is saying, we'll allow you to go on payment modes, but you have to pay off any previous earned premium. You have to pay that off within the course of the year. So that's something new. So if you had insurance through the workers' comp state fund and you owe money on it, you still have to pay that back, even if you changed into a new business. Any questions on that? There's some questions.
I just had one pop in the chat, but I'm just
Sure.
looking for some clarification from Linda.
Okay.
If Linda, you wouldn't mind unmuting or just popping in the chat. So Linda, you're asking if workers' comp is required for the owner for your program? Is that what you're asking?
If you own it and you have no employees, you don't have to have workers' comp if it's just you. But the moment you add on a part-time person or anybody, then you have to have workers' comp. Did that answer that question?
Do I have workers' comp? Do I have workers'
Yes,
comp?
thank you, Linda. And thank you, Marcia.
Okay, so we're going to go to the executive. Let me see, did I cover everything on here? One thing I do want to mention, that make sure your business name is correct. So if you are ABC childcare, you have to file everything as ABC childcare. You just can't say ABC daycare or ABC, whatever the proper name is. You have to make sure that name follows all your insurance papers, whether it's your general liability, your workers' comp, your DBL. That name has got to be consistent, because in the event of a claim, if that name is not listed the right way that you're listed for on the state, there could be a problem with coverages. So executive officers, if you're a corporation, they need to know who the officers are. Is everybody here? Are you an LLC? Are you a DBA? Are you a corporation? Can people type in what they are? If you're a limited liability company, the owners are listed on the workers' comp. If you're a DBA and you have no employees, you don't have to have it. If you're a comp, if you're a corp or an S corp, you have to list the officers. The officers are rated on a minimum payroll of $45,500. Doesn't matter if you make that or not. If you're an officer on the workers' comp, you're going to be rated at 45,500. There are some officers that are in name only, like maybe they're a silent partner. They're just helping with the funding or something, but they don't do anything with the daycare. They can be listed as a silent partner, and there's a flat fee of $100. So you have to be very clear when you complete the workers' comp application, what everybody's jobs are. Is that clear? I mean, that could be kind of confusing. These are the codes that primarily child care providers use. It's 8869 and 9059. 8869, as you can see, like right here, this is actually from the workers' comp book. It applies to centers that offer child care services for children. They predominantly provide daycare for younger children with structured approach to learning. It includes singing, dancing, etc. Although the center may teach, instruct, or provide lessons, the center is not the same as a traditional school. This class code, as you can see, 8869 is 96 cents per $100 in payroll. If you have someone that's a cook, if you have someone that's janitorial, their class code is 9059. You can see 9059 is $10.10 per 100. Because of the exposure, you have a better chance of getting injured. If you are a cook, you can get hurt, you can get burned, you can cut your finger, and janitorial, you can slip and can fall. That's why those rates are high. So if you have a teacher that is doing a cook and daycare, they're going to list it under the cook. Some companies will allow you to split it out. That's how you have to do your payroll. And we'll let Stephanie address that when she talks about the payroll. But that's why it's very important for you to be very specific on what the job structure is. Because if you say that they are a teacher and they get injured as a cook, there's a problem when it comes to the workers' comp. Okay, does everybody understand that part? Because that's critical. There are comp fees with every policy. So you might think, okay, I have a daycare, they make 10,000, this is the rate. Well, that's part of the rate, but then you have to add in all these other things that vary per company. Lost cost multiplier, terrorism that goes on a per payroll, 30 cents per payroll. There's a catastrophe fee, a New York State assessment fee, an assessment fee. So when you add all that up, it adds more money to the premium. So when you calculate your budget, you have to take all those into consideration when you're working into your profit and loss. What types of injuries are covered? So if your employee gets injured on the job, so if they slip and fall, if they hurt their back while they're lifting a child, that's all considered workers' comp. If they're driving, if you have them driving and maybe going to the bank, if you have a true commercial policy, commercial auto, and they're driving the vehicle and they're in an accident and they're hurt on the job, that would be covered for workers' comp. So anytime that they're hurt on the job is covered workers' comp. Okay, here it is. Which services are optional for workers' comp? I guess I don't understand. If you're an employee, there's no option. You have to be covered under the workers' comp. The class code is what varies. So I'm not sure. I don't understand that question. There are optional covers for the disability. Maybe you're thinking about that, which we will get into later. Some workers' comp also cover injuries from terrorism and violence. So there's a lot of things happening, and this is still in the discussion stages with the state board. If there is like the shootings, if things happen with terrorism in the daycare, and there's mental stress, how is that handled? And it's on a case by case per company how that's handled. Some common claims are 30% of workers with childcare are usually sprains and strains from lifting. Well, you know the children, if you don't lift them the right way, you could hurt your back. That's a common claim. In most cases, it takes 12 days before your employee can return to work. So you have to understand that that's 12 days that they're getting paid out, which will affect your workers' comp rates, because you'll have the mod will be affected by the number of claims that you have. Does anybody have anyone that works remotely? Before I go through this, do you have a business person that works remotely, or bookkeeper that works remotely that's on the books? If you have someone that works remotely and they get injured at their home, they trip while they're getting a cup of coffee, that's something that could normally happen when they're at the job, that could be covered under the workers' comp. So you also have to let the workers' comp know that they're working remotely. Not too many childcare centers have anybody that works remotely, but I just wanted you to be aware of it. What is not covered under your workers' comp? Things that happen injuries that happen in a fight that an employee caused. Things that are intentionally done by an employee. If something happens to an employee who's intoxicated. If it takes place to your employee's commute before they sign on, going back and forth to work before they actually sign on. If they get in an accident going to work, that's not covered. If they're running an errand for work, then it would be covered, but back and forth to work would not be. Emotional and physical trauma due to recent shootings. That right now doesn't, but it's changing as every day new rules are coming forth, and each company is a little different. Workers' comp will also not protect you if your employee sues you for gross negligence, malicious intent, discrimination, failure to promote, and wrongful termination. If you are sued by any of these things, that would be covered under your employment practice liability. It's a separate policy. Workers' comp is just for injury. It's not for discrimination. It's not for failure to promote. How does workers' comp protect my business? Well, if your employee gets injured and they go under the workers' comp, that eliminates them from starting a lawsuit for you. So they're protected under the workers' comp. That eliminates them making a lawsuit, which a lawsuit then can be undetermined amount of money. So there's a cap with the workers' comp. It also helps the employees get back to work so that they're productive. Now, this is going back to the named insured and the FEIN number. This is what I said. It has to make sure that your workers' comp follows the FEIN number. If you change a corporation and you start your employees under a different FEIN number, you have to make sure that you have the workers' comp. Some just change, like whatever issues, and they change this corporation to this corporation, two different FEIN numbers. You just can't move that workers' comp along with it. It matches the FEIN number. Will workers' comp cover me if an employee sues me for getting hurt on the job? The workers' comp is no fault. It will cover, the workers' comp will help prevent the lawsuits. They give up their right to sue you when they put in a workers' comp claims. However, there are exceptions that workers' comp doesn't provide coverage for, which could open you up to a lawsuit. FEIN stands for Federal Employment Insurance Number, FEIN. I just saw that in the question. What it doesn't cover you for is assault, battery, defamation, fraud, or emotional distress. So that is not covered under the workers' comp. If this is where your employment practice liability would come in, you might have some of those coverages under that. So workers' comp also most companies require that you do audits. They'll send you out a paper. Sometimes they can be audits that you can complete yourself. And you have to make sure you reach out to your payroll company, your bookkeeper, and make sure you complete the audits. Just don't ballpark it, because that's what your rate is going to be on. And if you don't complete the audit and you just say, well, I don't have time, or I don't understand, or I'm not doing it, they'll come up with the audit rate, and chances are it's going to be more than what you're paying. So it's really important that when you get the audit, you complete it. Talk to your agent, talk to your payroll company, make sure you get the accurate numbers, because that's what your rate is on. And that will help save some premium dollars to make sure you're being rated the correct way. Any questions on that? We're kind of moving around really quickly. Did I lose anybody? Am I going too fast? Can somebody type something in the messages? How is it going speed wise? Okay, Sarah says okay, Linda says great. Okay, because we're covering a lot of information, and it can be kind of daunting, especially since this is not your business is childcare, but you have to think about your childcare as your business. You have to protect yourself. You have to make sure you have all your business policies in place. So if a loss occurs, you're protected and you don't have to close down your business. So while it's a wonderful, touchy feeling, important job, you have to think about it as a business. And ECLC is making sure that you're thinking about it by putting on these workshops to help you strive to empower yourself and to educate yourself so that you are a successful business owner. So here are the audits that I just talked about. Now I'm going to introduce Stephanie Kunkel with Complete Payroll. She does a lot of the payroll for childcare. So there's certain things in the payroll system that you should know and that you could use to your advantage. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Marcia. I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay, right? Thumbs up, Marcia. Good.
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for asking me to come on. I only have a few short slides, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. Just to introduce myself, I'm with Complete Payroll, like Marcia said. I've been with the almost 30-year-old company for just about 2 years now. We are local to the Buffalo area. We are in New York State, but we do process payroll throughout all of the United States. I love helping business owners, so I hope the few minutes that I get today will allow you to take away some good info. So I'm going to ask Marcia to switch the slide. Thank you. So the first thing I just want to touch on today are the benefits of outsourcing your payroll. There are quite a few, so I narrowed it down to a few of my favorite reasons why we bring wonderful business owners onto our platform. The main reason is your payroll taxes. It's a complicated subject for most business owners. And just like Marcia just said, you did not start your business to deal with payroll or insurance. You started your business to help families and children. So we will calculate, file, and pay your federal, state, and local taxes for you, and also produce those quarterly and year-end reports, along with W-2s, 1099s, however your employees are classified. That's all on us. So it takes the onus off of you, which equals more time to run your business. As a new business owner, you typically see payroll taxes around 18%. And this is a summation of OASDI, FUTA, Medicare, and unemployment taxes. We have a really great blog on our website that goes through exactly how to calculate all of these taxes. You'll kind of get to see that it's a bit of a lot of work. But that resource is for you. We just explain how we do it, but again, we can do it for you. So as a payroll company, we know what these percentages should be, what wage limit thresholds there are, and it leaves you not having to guess. It is just much too important for you and your business to have to worry about payroll taxes. So I would say, to me, that's the number one reason I see people come to an outsourced payroll company, are the taxes. Customer support.
Okay.
That's
Is this
okay.
the right one? Okay.
I'm still on the first one, but
sorry.
that's all right. No problem. Obviously, any payroll provider you go with has some sort of customer support, but I always ask people, how good is it actually? With us, there's no 1-800 numbers. You get a direct line, direct customer service rep. You're dealing with the same person every time. Now, I usually get people saying, I hear that all the time. How do you accomplish this? We make sure we give a maximum number of clients to each of our reps so they can ensure that they're answering you in a timely manner. Another reason for this customer service being so important is just what Marcia mentioned a couple slides ago is, are your employees classified correctly in your payroll software? Is their job duty listed correctly? Are they in the correct department? This is really helpful to have all organized in a payroll software so that you can generate certain reports for, let's say, the workers' compensation board or your accountant. There's a lot of different things that you can do with that information, and we house it all in one area. Certain softwares like QuickBooks, which are wonderful, other larger companies, they do not follow the model that we do when it comes to customer service, which is kind of what makes us different. Because like I said, it's really hard for anybody, even you guys as daycare owners, to really sell yourself on service. It really is kind of prove yourself, proof's in the pudding. So another benefit of outsourcing your payroll is the tracking of PTO and time off accruals, and just kind of services that help you guys stay compliant. So one of those things is the New York State sick leave law. This is just one example of what a payroll company can help you with. The new law came into effect in September of 2020, and it states that full or part-time employees, they incur 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours worked. Anybody that you have is full-time, it can be front-loaded, which is up to a maximum of 40 hours. And it's paid or unpaid depending on the size of your employee list and the number that you have in revenue. So anything under 4 employees, which it looks like most of you are, and under $1 million in revenue, this does not have to be paid time. So this type of resource and this type of information is what a payroll company can help you with. And I always say, track what you can. You never know when there's going to be an audit. And a lot of those, like Marcia was saying, with the workers' comp audits, all of that information that you need, you can come to us to submit for your workers' comp audit.
Stephanie, I'm just going to jump in here real quick. The paid family leave, which is part of the disability, it's your responsibility to track the paid family leave. And this is what would be good to use your payroll company for, because that's a lot of work on a business owner, having to track an hour here, an hour there. Your job is not, it's almost like you need a full-time person to do all this stuff. So why have somebody on the books when you can outsource it and you get the biggest bang for your buck and use your best time wisely?
Yeah, thanks for that, Marcia. It's really true. You know, I had a business owner tell me, you know, we just hired somebody to do this. And I know that every payroll company charges differently, but the amount of money that we charge to process payroll is minuscule compared to paying somebody full-time. I've got a question. What is the fee for payroll or W-2 forms at the end of the year, an additional course? I'm going to assume you mean cost, Venus. So payroll structure fees are based on the frequency in which you're paying and the number of employees that you have. So businesses that, you can run weekly payroll, biweekly payroll, or monthly payroll with a job. And this is how New York State defines it on their website. They use the term manual labor, which is unfortunately a bit of a gray area, but it kind of works out for certain business owners. I always say, err on the side of caution, err on the side of the employee. And what this rule is if you have an employee that works 25% of their job is manual labor, they should be being paid weekly. And the state looks at that. So I would have to assume, and I'm just making a guess based on this rule, that daycare providers, daycare workers should fall under that. You're moving, you're walking, you're picking up children. All of that is considered manual labor. A cashier at a grocery store is considered manual labor. So all of you, I would hope, would be paying weekly. And just to get back to your question, Venus, it depends on the number of employees you have and the type of services that you need. So it's really tough to say. It could be anywhere from $29 a week to $57 biweekly. It really depends, and it's specific to each business. W-2s are typically charged per W-2. I think right now we're charging $5.25 per W-2, and we generate all those for you. So if you only have two, it's $10.50.
So when you go to a payroll company, it's almost like a cafeteria style. You look to see what it is that you need, and they create the program for you. Same as insurance. Let's go over the coverages that you need.
Yeah.
Take this out, put this in, what's most important to you, and then they create a plan for you. All this is to help take the onus off of you, because if you're fined, those fines are a lot. And at the
Mhm.
end of the day, after you work with children and you stop, some of you stop your day at 7 p.m., do you really want to sit there and work out your numbers on your payroll that if you make a mistake, it could be costly? So I'm going to have you move along, Stephanie. Are we done with the slide?
I am done with the slide, although there is another question. I can answer
Okay.
this one quickly. It says, how does a payroll company help if you're being audited different than an accountant does? So we house information that's related to payroll. If your accountant does not do payroll, and some do, a lot of the accountants I work with don't like to do it because it's a lot of work, but we provide the information your accountant needs to do an audit. If you're being audited by the IRS, it could just be a tax thing. It could be a sales tax thing. I'm talking specifically about payroll tax, and certain reports, certain information, we can give access to your accountant and they can pull that and utilize that information.
So if you have workers' comp, you can work with a payroll company that can make the payment. And I forgot the term we use for this, Stephanie. So
yes, I will. I'm going to be touching on that. It's called pay as you go.
yes. Okay. There we go.
Yep. So if you want to go to
those lines, there we go.
Yep. So let me kind of jump down a little bit. I was talking about integrations in the last slide, I think. And basically businesses across the board I'm seeing are trying to automate many processes that they have. So when you work with a broker like Marcia, they're going to not only shop around for you and get you the best rate, but they can decide, and you guys can kind of decide together based on your risk, if a pay-as-you-go platform is the best option for you. And what that means is you're paying your workers' comp based on the payroll you run every time you run payroll, as opposed to paying a premium upfront. So we as a payroll company can integrate that. We can pull that data and upload it to the insurance carrier, and it's kind of a set and forget. You don't have to think about it at all. That is a huge benefit that I love helping people with. Some people don't get on the pay-as-you-go platform because maybe they're a little bit riskier, or there's a bunch of other factors involved. But our payroll company in particular can upload to, I think it's about 45 different carriers right now. So it's very, very robust.
So basically, when you start a workers' comp policy, if you do the pay-as-you-go, you don't have to put any money down. You're not paying it on assumption. You're paying it on the actual payroll amount, which means you're now eliminating audits because you're actually getting the numbers right from the payroll company. So there's no audit really. So that eliminates the audits, that eliminates you trying to have to calculate it. It just makes it simpler for you. You have to also balance that with the cost of the payroll company versus your time. And that's a judgment call that you have to make. But our point here is to educate you on what your options are so that you can make the educated decision. We want to empower you with information. So when you go to decide, you know the difference of what your choices are.
Yes. Thank you, Marcia. And it's a good question to ask, how can we integrate certain softwares that I use? How can I integrate my workers' comp? Do you even offer this? I always tell business owners to compare apples to apples. There's oftentimes I run up against somebody that has, well, I got a quote for $10 less. Okay, what is it offering? Does this help you out in your business at all? Are you receiving the same services? So this also includes that workers' compensation. Now, we Complete Payroll, we do not sell workers' comp insurance policies. Other companies do, and they treat it as a set and forget. Unlike Marcia, who will be a direct line to you and is able to shop your rates, to be able to ensure that, things are connected with me, etc. So I may even have one more slide, but I think with all of the questions and what we talked about, we kind of covered it all. And I know I gave a lot of information. Is there any questions that anybody had? Any other questions? There were some good questions in here. Okay.
Okay, if you do think of anything, please put them in as we go on and Stephanie can answer it. Right now, we're going to move on to the New York State disability. So there are two separate policies that you have to have. You have to have workers' comp and you have to have disability. If you have workers' comp and you don't have disability, there's a fine. If you have disability and no workers' comp, there's a fine. So they interact and they exchange communication with each other. So they always are aware to make sure that you have the policies going. And you have to make sure that the time frame, if you have an employee starting October 1st and you don't start your workers' comp till October 15th, you're without insurance for that 15 days. You're penalized by the state. So whatever, I tell my clients, whatever day you start that employee, that's the day you need to start your workers' comp. So I work really closely with payroll companies to make sure that if you want to start we all work on the same page. So that's why it's important that we have communication between you, your agent, your payroll company, so that we're all on the same page. Same thing happens with the disability. You have a little more leeway with the disability. There's a little more give and take, like they might backdate it like 30 days. They're a little more flexible. Workers' comp is not flexible at all. So that's really important that you are aware of that. So New York State disability is off the job illness. And the best way for me to describe that is pregnancy. If when you get pregnant, it's off the job, that's the disability. So if you're in a car accident in the evening and you get injured, that's disability. If you can't go to work because you're injured, but it has nothing to do with the job, that is disability. It's a cash only benefit. It gives you 50% of your average weekly wages for the last 8 weeks worked. The current benefit is $170 a week. It's also subjected to Social Security and Medicare taxes. So you don't get a strict $170 a week. It's a maximum of 26 weeks in any 52 consecutive working period. Now, you have to keep track of this. You have to keep track of who's in, who's out, what's on disability. That's where you should use your payroll company or your bookkeeper, whoever it is, to help you with this. I have a question here. What step should I go through to do bi-weekly payroll? Okay, so if you want to go from a bi-weekly payroll to a weekly payroll, you have to work with your payroll company. They're the ones that would direct you on what to do. Each payroll company is different, so I would reach out to them. And I would also compare too. And like a lot of payroll companies will say, okay, I'm going to do the workers' comp and I'm going to do this disability. Every time they touch it, there's a fee involved. So disability is a very simple, we'll get into that. Maybe I'll get into it. I'll just stay here right now. So let's say you have one employee. You multiply that one employee by the rate, and that's how much you pay. It's simple math calculation. But if you go to a payroll company, every month, they're going to put that number one in there and they're going to charge you. So if you're looking to save dollars, doing the disability yourself is a great way to do it. And I'm going to go through how it's rated in a minute. But here's the statutory rate. This is what's mandatory. Your basic benefit, the male is $1.75 and the female is $3.80. Now, if you want to do 2 times the disability, the rate doubles. You can offer enhancements, but the more enhancements you offer gives them a reason not to come back to work. So you want to take care of your employees, but you also want to make it so that you don't make it so easy that they're getting so much money not working that you're missing an employee. So if you are an owner, 3 or more owners or shareholders have to be included on the disability. 1 or 2 officers may exclude themselves. So if you have employees and you do not want to be covered under the disability, you can exclude yourself, but you have to make sure you complete this form, which your insurance agent will know what that form is. If you don't complete the form, then you're covered under the disability. Hold on a second. The DBL, if you're a sole proprietor, you do not have to have disability. There are some policies you can get if you're a sole provider, but you have to be specific with the company. So here's the rate. So it's $18. I'm using one particular company. Their rate, they go on males and females. So if you have 1 male, it's $18 a year. If you have 1 female, it's $39.60 a year. But chances are they have a minimum payroll, minimum account, which is $125. So you're calculating your DBL on your own. They send you the form, you put in 1 female, multiply it times $39.60. That's your rate. You look to the bottom and it tells you what the minimum payroll is. That's what you pay. If you go to a payroll company and they do your DBL, they're going to charge you for doing that simple payment. It's a simple math thing, but that could save you money if you're looking to cut costs. Does everybody kind of understand that? The paid family leave, they want to know what the job description is, whether you're male or female, whether you're full or part-time, and the payroll. And you multiply the payroll by 0.00511. It's all on a form. It's very let me see if I have a form here, which I'll show you. I'm sorry, I should have grabbed it out sooner. See if I have a blank form. So here's a form someone filled out. So you can see the squares. You just put the numbers in, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all across, and then it tells you how to calculate. There's all easy squares, and it tells you what numbers to add, how to calculate it, and what you owe. And you can even, if you're with the company, like this one is Standard Security, they'll give you their, you can start your own account. You go in on the account online and you just put it in. And then it'll calculate it right there for you. So if you put 1 employee, it goes 1 employee every month. It'll calculate what it is. You put your paid family leave, you put the payroll in, and it calculates it. So in the end, it'll tell you what your amount is. So how simple is that? The computer with the company does it all, and you're saving money by having a payroll company do it. Workers' comp might be a little different. It's not that hard, but if you do it with the pay-as-you-go, it eliminates that as well. Katie wants to know if you're getting the slides. The ECLC will be providing the slides to you. Correct, Alyssa? And
Yes,
Jessica?
I can send them out tomorrow to you,
Okay.
to all who registered and the participants.
Okay, so your paid family leave. This can be cumbersome for business owners. The eligible employee gets 12 weeks of job protective paid off. It's your responsibility as the business owner to track that time. So if they want to take off every Friday, then they can take off every Friday. It's their decision, but you have to track it. If they say, I want to take off 2 hours every Wednesday, they can take off 2 hours every Wednesday, and you have to track it to make sure that they are getting paid. Now you can, and then the next slide will tell you how they get paid. But employees can receive up to 67% of their average weekly raise, of their average weekly wage. And it's up to you to calculate that. How the benefits are paid out. So when an employee goes on paid family leave, you as the employer elects how you want to do it. Do you want to have the carrier, the insurance company pay them? Pay it directly to the employee, or do you want to be responsible and paying it yourself? If you have the company pay for it, the insurance company, a claim is submitted, it goes right to the employee, right to the insurance company. They'll calculate it, they'll get the information, and they'll make sure the payment is there. If you do it, it's your responsibility to make sure that that payment is out. And something like that, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, but that's where Complete Payroll or another payroll company would step in and assist them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's another one. If you have paid family leave and you've got to calculate those hours and make that payroll, you can't afford to mess that up. So if you don't have the insurance company do it, you make sure that your payroll company would do it. And that's something that you really need to talk to them about and make sure you're clear. You cannot collect disability and paid family leave. It's either one or the other. You can extend it. You cannot exceed more than 26 weeks in a 52-week period. Paid family leave does not provide payment of medical expenses. Does anybody have any general questions before we move on? We've covered this a lot. We have 10 minutes left. We're really cranking through here. Is everybody still with me? Can I hear a yes or like
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
See,
Hi,
Alicia's got a
Cherish.
little baby out, so
Yep.
she's listening and hanging out with a little cute baby. So thanks for staying with us, Alicia.
Multitasking, isn't that what childcare is all about? But what you
Mhm.
don't want to multitask is you don't want to multitask your numbers when you're with kids because it's really hard. So that's why it's really important that you have a great business plan and you have a great understanding and that you're empowered with information so you can make an educated decision. So can you get, this goes right up our alley, ladies. Can you get disability for anxiety? We all have anxiety, especially if you're a daycare provider with all the children and all the issues. Anxiety is it a disability? Anxiety disorders such as OCD, panic disorders, phobia, PTSD are considered a disability and can qualify for Social Security disability benefits. Those with anxiety can qualify if they're able to prove their anxiety makes it difficult to work. So if you have an employee or if you yourself have a disability policy and you can prove that your disability is anxiety, which doesn't allow you to work, you can get coverage under your disability policy. I have a question here. Why would we get audited by workers' comp? Workers' comp always audits. They're to make sure that you are reporting the numbers accurately and that they're getting the right premium dollars in the right classes. They will audit you. They can audit you. You can do a self-audit where they're going to send you the form and have you complete it like we talked about, or they're going to say the auditor is going to actually meet with you. During COVID, they didn't do that, but now that COVID's over, they can actually come to you and say, I want to see your books. And you have to provide your books to them. So they will actually physically look at your books, your payroll, your bookkeeping to see how you're paying and what you're paying in the class codes. That's why when you have an audit, if you're dealing with a payroll company, that auditor will deal directly with the payroll company. They won't even deal with you. You send it to them, they'll meet with them, they'll get the numbers, they'll look at all the books and get everything from them. If you have a payroll company and they want you to do a self-audit, you take that self-audit and you shoot it over to the payroll company and they'll complete it for you. You will always get a copy so that you'll always know what's happening, but that's just one thing that you don't have to deal with. Any questions on that? What is the link to complete? I don't understand what, if you're talking about disability, the company that you deal with will give you the link to your account and you can complete it online. I think that might be what you're asking for. If it's not, shoot a little bit more in the chat. Active shooter, this is really huge, and hopefully none of us will experience that. If there's an active shooter scenario, you may have a valid claim unless the shooter targeted you for personal reasons. So if the shooter was coming after you, they had a vendetta against you and they attacked your daycare, there might not be coverage. This is all something new. The workers' comp and the disability boards are looking through it. I've listed here all the different active shooter, the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, all that information that you could look up on your own. It'll be in the slideshow so you can investigate it on your own. This is gray area. They're learning as they're going because years ago there wasn't an active shooter situation. Mental health in the workplace. Workers' comp specifically states the claim for mental injury that is based on work-related stress and is a direct consequence of lawful personal decision involving a disciplinary action or termination in good faith by the employer is not compensable. So you fire somebody. That's not mental health. They said, you have to make sure you document everything. You just don't let somebody go automatically. You have to follow the procedures. You have to give them the warning. You have to put all that in so that if they claim that there's mental health issues, you have a diary and a history of what you did with them, giving them notice to make sure that they're being put on disciplinary action. So this is from a Shannon, who is a therapist. She said that according to the World Health Organization, mental health is described as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her potential and can cope with the normal stress of life. I am on the board, and so will Stephanie be on the board for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And stress and anxiety is huge. And I think people really opened their eyes when COVID came out. People that were hiding behind it or didn't want to acknowledge it. When COVID hit, as you can see, a lot of people realized the stress, anxiety of working in the home, of all this, the surrounding activity happening caused mental illness and mental anxiety. And that came to the workplace. Some people had to work at home. All that ties into mental health. So taking care of the mental health of your employees is essential. Now, I have a few minutes left, and I just want to kind of go over some topics because you have to have employee meetings with your employees. And these are some topics that you can discuss with them that will help you in the long run for your workers' comp and for your disability. Parts of the body that are most impacted by poor ergonomics: lower back 48%, neck 17%, upper back 16%, shoulders 11.5%. Okay, how many children do you lift in the course of a day? Several. So you can see that chances are, I mean, my grandson's 50 pounds. Man, I feel it when I lift him. If I'm not lifting him the same way, I can feel it in my sciatic, I can feel it in my neck, I can feel it in my back. I'm not doing that on a daily basis. You're doing it on a daily basis. So if you're not ergonomically lifting them the right way, that could cause a problem, which could become a workers' comp issue, which then could be a claim, which then could raise your rates. So those are things you need to think about. Positioning and posturing, like I said, these will be in the slides. These are great things for you to talk about with your employees. How to avoid twisting and bending. The proper way to twist, to do to put a child on the changing table so that you don't injure your back. Let me scroll through. Disorders. Most common ergonomic disorders working with young children are back injury, chronic low back pain, burping wrists, tension neck syndrome, carpal tunnel. Carpal tunnel is huge. Sick building syndrome, headaches, fatigue, and stiffness. These are all part of claims that can be put on the workers' comp. So these are all the things your employee can say happened to them and could be a claim for you, which eventually could affect your rate. Here's a sample, here's an explanation of how to aeronomically hold a baby and lift a child. We don't have to go through this. When you get the slides, you can see it, and then you can discuss it with your employees. How do you pick up a toddler without hurting your back? These are things you need to review with your employees and keep a log on it. So let's say you have somebody that injures themselves and the workers' comp say, well, you know, your rate's going up. You can say, well, I've done these trainings and now we've installed this training where everybody has to take it and you sign off. They have to sign off saying that they've experienced it. So you're showing that you're doing your due diligence and making sure that they're doing the right care for themselves. How to lift. Here's a video. If I can get this down. There's a, whoop, I went too far. There's a video on YouTube that you can show for your employees. How to carry garbage. Something as simple as that. How many times, you know, you're walking along, you move, and all of a sudden you just move a certain way and you get this twinge and you don't know how it happened. Well, it's a buildup. So all these things are important. Avoid sitting too long. How to sit, how to do the stretches, how to use the wall for support, the tripod lift, the pivot technique, toddler lifting instructions. These are things that as a daycare provider, you really need to make sure that your employees know what is happening. There's all different stretches, the back stretch, the press stretch, the lower back, the pelvic, all these things you can on a training, and it could be counting towards your licensing. So these are all things that you can do. The upcoming training I'm just going to tell you about is we're having a cyber training in a couple of weeks. That's making sure, having you understand about your exposures for all your papers. If you take information, if you have credit, if you take checks, that's all involved in that. Does anybody have any questions before I finish up? I do have one here. The link to completed self-reporting disability. Okay, we talked about that. The company will give you the link, whatever company you sign up with. Here's another one from Eva. When an employee gets benefit from workers' comp, how does this affect the employer? So you have a mod, and the more claims you have, the higher the mod goes. And that's like a surcharge. So the more claims you have, it will affect your rate. And the less claims you have, you'll get a credit. So you really want to try to eliminate, especially the same claim over and over and over again. If every employee hurts their back, the company's going to come and say, what are you doing to help them prevent it? That's why you have to do these trainings to keep them from getting injured. Let's see, what's another one? Okay, great information provided. Can the name of the payroll be provided? Yes, it's in the slide. It's complete payroll. It's Stephanie. She has her information in the slide. So when you get the slide, Stephanie, can you just put your information in the chat box, please?
Absolutely. I'll put my direct line and my email address, whatever you prefer.
Okay, so we have some here. Thank you. Thank you for the information. Thank you. Okay. Are we getting any type of certificate for this class? Alyssa, I'm going to have you address that. I know I am licensed as a trainer.
Yeah, so we actually just, we did get these next 2 trainings approved for Aspire. So within the next few days, I will send you all a certificate of completion as well
Great.
as the slideshow.
Great. So now you can use this towards your licensing credit. So I'm just going to go through a couple more slides here. And this is what to look for when you're choosing a company and an agent. You want to look for an agent that understands your business, because your business is unique than anybody else's. You're not a clothing company, you're not a retailer, you're not a restaurant. You have different hours, you have different needs, you have different coverages, you need professional liability, you need workers' comp, you need disability. You have to have somebody that understands it. Somebody that's going to represent you to the company in case you have questions, in case there's an audit, in case there's a claim. Someone that has integrity and that you trust. Somebody that you can talk to and someone that you can trust with your future. Because if you're not insured the right way, it could affect your future and your future income. Because this is a business. You are a business. You are, and most of the women here, everybody here is a woman-owned business. This is your future. You can do very well, but you have to think about it as a business and protect yourself. You have to educate and empower yourself to make the right decisions. And that's it. And look at that. We finished at 7:34, pretty good. So I want to thank everybody. Alyssa put it in here that our next training is October 18th. You can get credit for that. Here's an email. Thank you, Quality Stars license. Okay, I think that must be for you, Alyssa.
Yeah, we don't need your numbers. What we'll do, we'll just send you a certificate and then you can have it for your records.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, let me ask you this. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the information you received? Can you just put it in here just so that I kind of know if I'm addressing the right information for you? 10. Oh, I like that one. Great. How was it? Did I explain it in an easy fashion for you to understand? Okay. And I'm really happy that it's an hour and I didn't lose anybody. So that is huge. It's 7:30 on what day is it today? Wednesday? I don't even know.
Tuesday.
I just came back from a trip to Europe, so I'm kind of on jet lag. So it's 7:30 on a Tuesday, and I'm very grateful for everybody taking an hour out of your precious time to help you be a successful business owner. And I want to thank ECLC for realizing the importance of information regarding your business as very important for your business and for your success.
Thank you, Marcia and Alyssa, for having me on today as well. I really appreciate everyone paying attention and asking great questions. Thank you.
And thank you, Stephanie, for supplying this information. I think it was really important, especially they had the individual questions, because a good payroll company can really help take the stress out of your life, especially when you get those audits. They can be kind of stressful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marcia and Stephanie. I'm just going to pop my email in the chat quick if you don't have that. If you have any other questions, or have any other feedback for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. And I can send it over to Marcia and Stephanie. But thank you all again for joining us tonight. And thank you, Marcia, as always. We will hopefully see you all in a few weeks on the next training on October 18th.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions regarding their their insurance policies and you want to reach out to me, you have my email information. I can look it over, give you some guidance, help you however I need to, okay?
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you. Have a good
great
night, everybody.
everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.